we see Paul's heart and his prayer to the one true and only living God for Israel's salvation. And then he explains to us that even though they're motivated by God's zeal, they did not achieve his righteousness because they raised up their own righteousness and thus misunderstood or failed to achieve God's righteousness. And then Paul brings in this principle that he says the end of every law, of every Torah, of every principle, of every doctrine is Messiah for righteousness to everyone who believes. Now he goes on and explains that, and I want to read that to you. Moses describes righteousness that comes from the law, or that is erected, raised up on the basis of a principle. He says, the person who does them, the laws, the principles, shall live by them or in them. Now, pay attention as you read this text with me. Pay attention how Paul argues always from what we call the Old Testament, from the Tanakh. He doesn't say, now I bring something new. He says, I show you something, but it's always even from the same area, from the same author. It's all written by Moses. Now he showed the righteousness that came out of a principle, out of the law. In contrast to it, the righteousness that springs from faith, from a relationship, from a loving relationship that is based on reliability. He speaks this way. Do not say in your heart who will ascend to heaven, that is to bring Messiah down, or who will descend into the abyss, that is to bring Messiah up from the dead. But what does it, the righteousness of faith, say? The word is very near to you, in your mouth, in your heart. And this, Paul says, is the word of faith that we proclaim. If you confess with your mouth, Yeshua is Lord, Jesus is Lord, and if you believe in your heart that the one true and only living God has raised him from the dead, you will be saved. Look, righteousness, if I use this word, is something that we instinctively recognize in God's character. If we think about God and if we encounter in his word or also in our feelings, in an experience, if we encounter the one true only God, the God of Israel, we feel instinctively, I said, we simply feel it, that he is righteous. And this might frighten us. This might be something we would like to avoid because it might eat us up. It might devour us. But also it might be something that we envy, that we would like to have, that we strive for. In any case, if we encounter the one true and living God, we feel that we miss something, we lack something. Now look, for us, this is a very high standard. This is something we don't have. This is something we have to work to and to get it. From God's point of view, righteousness is always something he will give. It's interesting, actually, if I could take you now and make a quick course on studying Hebrew with you, and we would come to the word charity or alms, or something that I have and I want to give to somebody else who is in need of it, then in modern Hebrew, we would use the word tzedakah. Actually, if you go today on these streets in Israel and you talk about giving alms to somebody, then you talk about tzedakah. This is the same word that Paul is translating with the word righteousness. And actually in the Old Testament, in the Tanakh, if it talks about the righteousness of God, it talks about tzedakah. Let me be very blunt here, and it is something that I, as a Christian who comes from an old Christian tradition in Germany and who grew up a Christian, I'm sometimes embarrassed thinking even about it. But if we Christians believe that Judaism is the law, the religion of the law, the religion of works, the religion that bases a relationship with God on human achievements, if we as Christians think that way, then it shows that we did not understand neither the so-called Old Testament, nor did we understand the New Testament. Because from the very beginning, and this is what Paul emphasizes here, from the very beginning, righteousness, from God's point of view, is something that He, the Father in heaven, provides to those who trust in Him, who come to Him and build on His grace alone. So this is not something new. This is not something unique Christian. This is something, well, I could go back to creation and ask what was the motivation of the Creator to create us, to create this world, to create human beings and animals and whatever. It's His righteousness that He pours out and that He wants us to receive.